And welcome back to Sports the Nemo Way. Here we are with our kind of emergency episode for the NFL Draft. And you're saying to yourself, yeah, the NFL Draft was a few weeks ago. And we apologize. We've had some technical difficulties, some scheduling difficulties, and it took us a minute to get the draft stuff done. So we apologize. But here we are, going to knock out some draft analysis. Now, before we do that, I do want to say we are not Mel Kiper Jr. or any of those guys. We don't spend our entire year looking at draft stuff. So if we don't discuss the sixth and seventh round very much, excuse us on that. We're really going to concentrate on mainly the first three rounds and how teams did, how we thought. We're going to go through all the teams, run through them, how we think their draft went, maybe touch on how it fits with the team, so on and so forth. And we're gonna burn through them as quickly but as nicely as possible. Um, all right, so we're gonna start off with the AFC East with the Buffalo Bills. I'm just gonna run through their first few draft picks here before we discuss. With the 30th pick in the first round, they took defensive end Gregory Rousseau from Miami. In the second round, they took Carlos Basham Jr., another defensive end, this time from Wake Forest. And in the third round, they took an offensive tackle, Spencer Brown, from Northern Iowa. Since we don't have a Bills fan in the room, I guess I'll kick directly to Drew. And what did you think of what the Bills had to do here in the draft?
I mean, sitting at number 30th, we obviously had a pretty good season last year, making the AFC Championship against the Chiefs. So I thought what they did was fine. I think that defensive end on Miami, I think he sat out a year, but I think that could be a steal for them if he comes back and does what he does with, what was it, 19 tackles for loss and 15 and a half sacks?
And 19 and a half tackles for loss and 15 and a half sacks, but it was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago. We don't know, but if he can do that, or maybe not exactly that, but a little less, I think they've got a good defensive end there. Help out their defense.
Yeah, I agree. I think both they have a good couple of good pass rushers right now, but with Hughes and I can't remember the other guy's name.
Is Oliver one of them?
Well, Ed Oliver is their defensive tackle.
Yeah, right.
But what my point was is both their defensive ends are in their mid-30s, so they're going to need to be replaced. And I think taking two defensive ends early here, they can play with those guys for a year, whatever, and get some snaps under their belt, learn some things from veteran pass rushers, and then take over. I don't think it was a bad move.
No, I think the Bills are doing things the correct way. You start bringing these guys in before you have to have them. That way it's not an emergency pick. And offensive lineman, third round, it never hurts to take offensive lineman. When you've got a franchise quarterback, you want as many people to protect him as you can get.
Well, they also took Spencer Brown, who is a behemoth of a human being. He's 6'8", 312, big guy. The Bills like road graders. They like guys that can be physical and manhandle guys. Like he can fit in there. I mean, this is Northern Iowa, not regular Iowa, but Iowa's been pretty decent over the years at producing offensive linemen. So I think building through the lines is always a smart idea. I think, and like you said, drafting an offensive line, even if I don't think he's going to be a starter. I think their offensive tackles are pretty good. I just think, having a swing tackle come off the bench for injury or suspension or anything is always a good idea. And I think you never know what's happening. I mean, the seasons have been so messed up here recently. What if somebody tests positive, has to miss a game or two? You need somebody to step in. I mean, it's always a good idea to have extra linemen.
You don't want to get your franchise quarterback knocked out because you don't have any depth on the O line.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at the Cowboys. Went from the best offensive line and a couple injuries they were in bad trouble.
Absolutely.
An absolute terrible season. Quarterback hurt and a bunch of other stuff.
Well, Ray, you got anything to say
Well,
about
I mean, if we look at the Colts Bills game from last playoff, I mean, they got a little bit of tweaking to do because I mean, we took them to the limit for the whole game, and we almost beat them, but they probably seen a little, offensive line problem or a defensive problem that they had to correct in order to, keep competitive because the Colts are coming at you and, there's a couple other teams coming at you too. So you got to keep upgrading as you can.
Well, I think that's a good point, Ray. I mean, you think about the AFC contenders. You have to go get Mahomes. You have to have guys that are chasing around Lamar. And this year, it could be you need guys to come after Carson Wentz. I think the Colts have joined the elite in the AFC with the quarterback. And then obviously the Bills, but they don't have to sack their own quarterback. Am I missing anybody? That's the top teams in the AFC, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
I think everybody else is a tier below, like the Steelers and the Browns and Titans. I think they're all a step below. But I mean, I just like you're right. I mean, we saw the Super Bowl this year.
You need linemen.
Yeah, well, absolutely, you need O linemen. Obviously, their backup tackles were no good.
Right. Couldn't stop the Bucks.
And second off, no matter how good the quarterback is, I think we all agree Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. But if he's under fire all night, he's not going to be that successful.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's what they're trying to do because I also think the Bills are happy with what they have at the skill positions. They have good receivers. Mm-hmm. They have a nice tight end. They have a good quarterback, and they have a good running back. So I think going line and defense first was good for them.
Oh yeah.
Well, does anybody else got anything to say about the Bills before we move on to the Dolphins?
No, I don't think so.
All right, so like I said, we'll move on to the Miami Dolphins, whose draft is a little bit more, should I say, full. With the 6th pick in the first round, the Dolphins took Jalen Waddle, the speedy receiver from Alabama. Also in the first round, with the 18th pick, they took Jalen Phillips, the other defensive end from Miami. And then in the second round, they took Javion Holland, safety from Oregon. Also in the second round, they took Liam, Eichenberg, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. And then in the third round, they took Hunter Long, tight end from Boston College. So as you can tell, they had a bunch of picks, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a third. They also had a 4th, 5th, 6th, and 2 sevenths. So they brought in a lot of players. So I guess we can start off here early. At the 6th pick, they took Jalen Waddle. They passed up on the Heisman winner. They passed up on who am I forgetting here?
Chase went right before.
Chase went right before.
Yeah.
So they just passed up on Smith. Right. So they took Waddle. I think it's obvious at this point that the Dolphins' offense is valuing speed. They signed a speed receiver in Fuller in free agency. They have drafted Jalen Waddle, a speed receiver. They have a running back who is like more of a scat back type. Who you get the ball in his hands in space. He's really fast. And then they have Devontae Parker, who is more of the jump ball physical receiver. They do have that. And they have the tight end, Gesicki. Thank you, Drew. So I think they have weapons, and I think Waddle adds to that. But the question after this season is, can Tua get on the ball? Tua looked really bad last year.
Yeah. You wonder if Tua had some hand in which Alabama receiver they took, since he played with both of them.
He threw to both of them a lot. So
he liked them both. Waddle's probably the better returner.
So he probably returned punts.
Maybe they're looking that way.
The other thing is that the interesting thing, and I don't want to make a huge deal about it, but it has been reported. I mean, Smith gave an interview where he said Mac Jones was superior to Tua, and Jalen Waddle co-signed it. Jalen Waddle's like, oh yeah, he's better.
Oh damn!
So, but then Miami draft Waddle, and now you're playing with Tua again. So
I bet that's an interesting conversation.
I did remember hearing that. Smith said that Jones here to
But then after the Waddle pick, having a defensive head coach. Sorry, I'm not surprised that they then went defensive end safety back to back picks, trying to shore up that defensive line. Obviously, try and get pressure. Their defensive overall last year was very good. So adding pieces to it is always a nice thing. And then again, in their second round pick, they went out and got a big offensive tackle from Notre Dame.
That's good.
Yeah,
Notre
historically, Notre Dame's been tough.
Yeah. And Notre Dame produced a ton of offensive linemen over the years. So I don't know a ton about this kid. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a offensive line expert when it comes to picking these guys out. And I don't think I watched a single one of Notre Dame's games this year, to be 100% honest with you. So
I watched just when they played Clemson,
right, the Clemson game.
They played Clemson and they played Alabama in the college football. But it's not like I was staring at the left tackle or anything,
or right
tackle, whichever one.
And then they took the long kid, the tight end out of Boston College, who I believe led the ACC in receptions of tight ends.
Yeah.
He's solid. He's a bigger kid, 6'5", 255. I don't know that he's going to take Gesicki's job, but a depth tight end.
Of course, they go double tight somewhere.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That gives them another option.
I think the Dolphins are in a really good spot. Their defense was elite last year. They have a ton of picks. They have cap space. They're not strapped for cap space. And they're able to bring in all this young talent. The big question mark is Tua.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
and
exactly.
I don't want to say he's done after his rookie season, only half a season as a rookie. I don't want to say that, but it did not look good, and at times looked downright bad.
Well, I kind of feel like with all this new talent, he's definitely got the weapons. It's kind of a make or break time for him. He's got to show some progress at least, and make some steps. And in that division, you're either moving forward or you're losing a lot because the Patriots are always retooling. The Bills are solid, and the Jets are trying. So the Dolphins better not sleep.
I agree. But I will say I do like Brian Flores. I really like their head coach. He seems to have his head screwed on straight. He seems to know what he's doing. He's building this team up in a good direction, I believe. Whether he can handle quarterbacks or not, I have no idea. But if he can't, he needs to get somebody in there that, as an offensive coordinator, that can get into his head and help him out. In college, his best asset was the deep ball. So adding all this speed around him, hopefully can really exploit that for them. But I don't know. Ray, you got anything for the Dolphins?
I think the offense is probably looking for a nice young cohesive unit. Maybe like 4 or 5 guys that can kind of be friends with Tua and might kind of make him more comfortable on the team. Because last year, what was it? Fitzpatrick in, Fitzpatrick out, Fitzpatrick in, Tua in. It just didn't really set right, and then didn't feel right as an offense. So I think they're trying to get a bunch of young players in here for this guy to make him feel comfortable and maybe build his confidence up and get him going.
Well, I agree with you, Ray, and to also touch on that, they were winning with Fitzpatrick, and they benched him anyway. They were like 4-1 or something.
Yeah, Fitzmagic was getting it done.
And then they benched him for Tua, and Tua came in and struggled. That couldn't have gone over great in the locker room. But then at the same time, if you're Tua, every time I start to struggle in the second half, you bench me and bring Fitzmagic back in. So that also can't be great for Tua's development. So I don't know. It was kind of a mess at the quarterback position last year for those guys. You got anything else for the Dolphins before we move on to the Patriots?
No, let's do it.
All right. The New England Patriots. You won't have many nice things to say about the Patriots in this room. But I personally think the Patriots had a good draft. They took Mac Jones with the 15th pick in the first round, the quarterback out of Alabama. In the second round, they got Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle from Alabama. And in the third round, they took Ronnie Perkins, the defensive end from Oklahoma. They also went. They also had a pick in the fourth, the fifth, 2 in the sixth, and a seventh, where they went running back, linebacker, safety, offensive line, and receiver. Whether those picks come out, I don't know. But I can't remember what pick it was. It was around the Eagles pick, around pick 10. I text Wade and was like, Mac Jones is going to fall to the Patriots.
Yep.
And
here we are.
And he did. And not going to lie to you guys, it kind of scares me.
Yep.
I mean, Belichick didn't have to make a move and got the exact quarterback he wanted.
Yeah.
He got the smart quarterback that he wanted that will do what he wants.
But the two qualities that he has is they say he's really smart and he's really accurate.
Yep.
What two qualities does Brady have that we all talk about? He's really smart and he's really accurate.
Exactly. That's what Belichick wanted.
Now, that is not me trying to say Mac Jones is Tom Brady. He's going to win 6 Super Bowls. I'm not saying that.
No. Oh, we're quoting you right now.
But I do think Mac Jones will be able to do the things that Belichick wants him to do. And Belichick is a smart head coach. As much as I dislike the Patriots, I can't deny Belichick's intelligence and game planning and all those things. He is going to help protect Mac Jones.
Yes.
He plays to your strengths. He doesn't make you throw the ball 40 times into a great pass defense. He turns around and says, hey, hand this ball off.
Right.
So I do believe he'll do those things. And then in typical Belichick fashion, he went out and got 2 defensive linemen.
Yeah, and Barrymore in the second round from Alabama.
Absolutely.
If you watched the national title game, that man was disruptive. He was in there tearing things up. That was a great pick, I think. I hate to see him go to the Patriots, but I think it was a really good pick.
And what people don't remember is, yes, they went out and had a spending spree, one we've never seen Belichick do. They went out and got 2 tight ends. They went out and got a pass rusher. They went out and got a receiver and all sorts of things. I'm probably forgetting some. But the other thing is, they had 6 starters opt out of last season.
Right.
And now those guys are back.
Yeah.
So bring those guys back. Bring in these new free agents. Bring in these stud draft picks we just talked about. And now, not only are you adding talent, you're making this talent compete for snaps.
Yep.
A Belichick special. And Belichick puts you in positions to succeed. If you're a great pass rusher that can't play the run, you're not going to play on first down.
Right.
Like this, he does these types of things. Hey, on third down, you're coming in. You're pinning your ears back. You're going off the quarterback. But on running downs, sorry, bro, I can't put you on the field.
Mm-hmm.
He does those types of things. He does, and I think, unfortunately, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if the Patriots snuck in and won this damn division this year.
They might.
I can see
like
it.
you said, with the guys
How
coming
long-
back.
How long do you think till Mac Jones starts?
That's a good question because I have to wonder about Cam Newton's health because Cam Newton didn't look like he could play in the NFL last year. Like, Cam Newton was so bad, you're like, there has to be something wrong with him.
Right. It wasn't the Cam we're used to seeing. Physically, he did not look the same.
Right. And he did get COVID in the middle of the season, so I'm sure that didn't help. He's coming off multiple surgeries. I'm sure that didn't help. But at the same time, you're a running quarterback. How much healthier are you going to get? So even if Cam does start the season as the starter, how long till Mac Jones has to come in because Cam's hurt again? Because in order for Cam to be successful, he has to be able to run. Because he's not, again, on Belichick, he's not accurate. So you can't just say, hey, drop back and throw it 50 times and beat this team. Because he's going to throw too many incompletions. He's going to, throw a ball to the other team. He's going to do those things. He's not a drop back passer. He's an athlete. And when he has to run around, he's taking hits.
Well, another thing about the Mac Jones Barrymore picks is Belichick and Saban are good friends.
Yes.
And Belichick likes those Saban players. And here you got two high-quality Saban players, one on each side of the ball. They're going to fit right in with what he likes to do.
Yep. It'll be interesting to watch training camp this year for the Patriots. See what comes of it, see what happens, and to see if Jones can start the season out of camp. You know, if he can beat Cam out during training camp, or it'll happen in the middle season. But I don't think there's any way, a snowball's chance in hell, that Mac Jones sits the entire season.
He'll be in before it's over.
All right. Does anybody else have anything about the Patriots before we move on to the Jets?
I don't think so.
All right. Let's move on to the sad Jets. As Uncle Doug said earlier, the Jets are trying. When I describe your franchise as trying, that's probably not a good thing. But let's go over their picks real quick. In the first round, with pick number 2, they took Zach Wilson, QB out of BYU. Also in the first round, pick number 14, they took Elijah Vera Tucker, guard out of USC. And in the second round, they took Elijah Moore, wide receiver out of Ole Miss. They had no third-round pick. They did have a fourth, fifth. They had 3 fifths and 3 sixths with no seventh. They did not have a third-round pick because they traded it to move up to 14 to take Elijah Vera Tucker. So, that being said, they traded Sam Darnold to Carolina earlier in the offseason. A really high thought of QB prospect that's been there a few years and not done anything. Then they drafted a quarterback in Zach Wilson. And then they've had one of the worst offensive lines in football for like 3 or 4 seasons now. And they went out and got the best guard in the draft, in Elijah Vera Tucker, to try and help protect their new quarterback investment. And last year, in the top of the first round, they took the Beckham kid, that huge offensive tackle. So now they have a left tackle and a left guard. So at least his blind side ought to be protected well. Now, he's going to see a lot of hits coming, I think. But Joe Douglas, the GM for the Jets, was the assistant GM for the Eagles for a long time. He is obsessed with building through the lines. So I'm not surprised he took a guard. I'm not surprised he went offensive line. I'm not surprised that he wants to do these things. But I don't think Sam Darnold is a bad quarterback. I think the Jets are awful.
Agreed.
I would agree.
I
for
think
week 1 when the Panthers play the Jets.
Yes, I said this the other day, and some people look at me like I'm crazy, but I really fully believe this. If Sam Darnold and Patrick Mahomes were drafted by each other's franchises and switched teams, Patrick Mahomes would be struggling to be successful with the Jets, and Sam Darnold would be doing really well with Andy Reid in Kansas City.
Yeah.
He may not be Mahomes, but he would be doing really well, and Mahomes would be struggling because the Jets are set up for whoever their QB is to fail.
Well, just look at what Mahomes did in the Super Bowl with the Bucs. That would be every game with the Jets,
Right?
And so it's going to make a huge difference.
And that was just with no line. Imagine not having that many weapons.
Yeah,
Right.
that too.
Yeah.
I mean, not just
Worse.
no line, but no weapons.
And you can't, every time you walk off the field, and 2 minutes later you look up, there's more points on the board.
Yeah.
Because the Jets have nothing going for them.
Right.
They have no defense. They have no special teams. They have no line. They have no weapons. They have no running game. Like, what do they have that works? They have a quarterback out of BYU. Like,
I watched Zach Wilson play once this year, I
Watch him
think.
when they play Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, we saw him play Coastal Carolina. And, I mean, he looked impressive against Coastal Carolina.
He's got an
but
arm.
It's Coastal Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I'd
they did.
like to see him play a little more than that.
I'm not saying he's got to play Alabama and all that, but maybe someone in the Power 5 conferences.
And like Drew said, he does have a good arm, he
he's got-
can
he's
move
got a
around.
cannon
He can
for an
run.
arm, yeah.
which in New York, he's probably going to have to move around and run. Like you said, the left side may be okay, but they're still coming after him.
Yeah. Here's my thing. I think I think Zach Wilson can be a good quarterback in the NFL,
Well, I think he can.
but I don't know that things have improved enough that he won't end up just like Sam Darnold. I'm expecting Sam Darnold to do well in Carolina this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. Sam Darnold has uber talent. He is super talented. We all watched him play a bunch of times at USC.
Yes.
He is super talented. A little bit of a gunslinger, absolutely. Has a little bit of Brett Favre in him, where hey, there's a tight window there. I can make it.
Yeah, he's got the confidence.
He's maybe not anymore.
Right. Yeah, if they haven't beat it out of him.
Right. That's the thing. That's where you got to worry about Sam Darnold. Is he too shell shocked or gun shy at this point?
Right.
That's the worry, because he has the talent, he has the arm, he has the athletic ability, he has the head for it. It's whether he's still got it because of the beating he's taken. So I don't want to talk about Sam Darnold anymore because that's not the draft. But I think Sam Darnold could end up just like him. Is what my point is, though, if they're not careful.
Yeah. I feel bad for Zach Wilson because he's going to have to be careful. He's going to get beat up.
I think if I'm the Jets, I know it's hard to do, draft a kid that high and sit him, but I think I go sign a veteran and say, hey, you're going to play this year, and Zach Wilson, learn as much as you can from this year, and we'll draft some more offensive linemen in the next year's draft.
Yeah. I think that'd be the best thing for Wilson and probably the best thing for the franchise long term.
Like Joe Burrow did. ACL.
Right. Look at what just happened to Joe Burrow. Yeah, absolutely. And Joe Burrow is good. It's not like Joe Burrow's, lacking in talent. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I don't know much about Elijah Moore, the receiver out of Ole Miss. But what I read on his draft report here, it seemed pretty good.
I didn't watch him when they played Alabama, and they lost.
Yeah, and I think I watched him maybe when they played Mizzou too, and I think he did pretty well in both those games. But I'm like you, I haven't watched him a tremendous amount.
Yeah, so I think he's a good receiver pickup for them. He'll be a weapon for Zach.
I mean, they have Jamison Crowder, who's a slot guy. He catches a ton of balls. I had him on my fantasy team.
I did as well.
Because he's like it's a normal day for him to catch 10 or 12 balls, but he's not a big speed guy. He's not a jump ball guy. He's not going to get in the end zone a ton. He's just shifty out of the slot, and he catches a lot of balls, which has a place, but he can't be your number one.
Your number one can't be some guy who's not quick. He can't get up and jump. He can't be in the middle.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right. Anybody else got anything on the Jets before we move on to the AFC North?
No.
All right. So we move to the AFC North, where we start with the Baltimore Ravens. Another team at the top of the AFC already. And in the first round, they picked 27. They took Rashad Bateman, receiver, Minnesota. Also in the first round, at pick 31, they took Jason Owa, linebacker, Penn State. They had no second-round draft pick. But in the third round, they took Ben Cleveland, guard, Georgia. And also in the third round, they took Brandon Stevens, defensive back, SMU. They also had a fourth, 3/5, and that's it. A fourth and 3/5 in the draft.
Wow.
Well, first off, I don't think we've ever said this. We don't talk about college sports much, but Drew's a Georgia fan.
I'm a Georgia fan. Yeah.
So, Drew, you know much about Ben Cleveland?
Yeah, he stayed an extra year last year with Georgia to be a senior coach. The younger offensive lineman that came in, he's a utility lineman. He's moved around on the O-line, depending on where he has to go. So I think he's a good pickup for the Ravens.
Well, I will say this. I don't know much about him, but they have him listed at 345.
He's ripped.
He's a big boy.
He's a big fella. Let me tell you what.
So, I mean, I will say this. Baltimore runs the ball like 40 times a game.
So does Georgia.
They like big road graders. It sounds like this guy could fit right in.
Say at Georgia, they pound the ball down his throat, so he'll be ready for running games.
So here's my question, Drew. Why did he go in the third round? What's wrong with it? So if he's this huge and he's a very good run blocker, is he not a good pass blocker? Is that the issue?
Maybe, and that he's, I don't know. I think he might. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this. He might have had an injury maybe a couple of years ago or something. I don't know. I'm not for sure on that. He might have had something. But I'm trying to think. I always thought he was a good lineman. He was one of the linemen that would go anywhere on the line.
Okay.
So
I'm not bashing the guy. I was just wondering.
There might be an injury there. I'm not sure.
Was there a little bit about his weight too? Didn't they want him maybe to drop a few pounds?
Yeah.
Or
How tall is he exactly?
He is 6'6", 345.
Yeah, I think they want. I think his weight they were, but he's not like he's fat. He's ripped.
he's big, yeah.
I think they want him to be a little bit quicker. He might be a little slow, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I really have no idea. I'm asking you, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot. So I apologize. So let's move on from the third round pick and get back to the top here. Their first pick, Rashad Bateman, receiver, Minnesota. This is one guy I did watch this year, or have watched in his career. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he is.
He has a good combination of size and speed. He's able to go up and get balls. I liked him coming out quite a bit. I think it's a good pickup for them, and they needed receiver help. They have some.
Gives Lamar a weapon.
The Ravens needed a receiver bad.
Somebody dependable, like you say, can go up and get those catches when Lamar's running around.
Yeah, because their number one receiver is Hollywood Brown, who's like what 5'8".
Yeah.
You know, he's lightning.
Yeah.
But he does one thing. He spreads the field. He's not going over the middle and catching balls and getting lit up.
Right.
Not
doesn't play very long. He's not.
Right.
Is that for real? His first name is Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean that's what.
It's Marquise Brown.
Oh,
Yeah, they
okay.
call him Hollywood Brown.
Oh,
It's
He's
Yeah,
Antonio
Antonio
Brown's
Brown's
cousin.
Yeah.
oh, cousin.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep, he needed a different name than that. Yep, Hollywood.
But just a little bit about Bateman. I mean, in 19, he was one of the best receivers in college football.
I remember when they played Penn State that game. He made some good catches to beat them. Me and Dad watched that game. That's the game I really remember watching it.
He averaged over 20 yards of reception. He was a big time player for Minnesota. But I think this was a good pick for them because I don't think it was a huge reach. Them picking at 27, but at the same time, it was a need.
Oh, yeah. And they got good value
They
at that
definitely
pick.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good for them. Then they had another first round pick at 31. This came from the Chiefs from the Orlando Brown trade.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably another reason why they drafted the lineman. Because they lost Orlando Brown.
Yeah. But they took a linebacker out of Penn State. Again, this is the Ravens. I'm not surprised they take a linebacker. But I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know much about this guy. His counterpart, the other linebacker out of Penn State, the Cowboys took.
Right. Yeah, that was considered probably the best backer in the draft. Yeah.
I don't know a ton about this kid, but he's 6'4", 260, so he's a big kid. So I don't know what he's going to be like in coverage. But I'm speaking out my rear end here, so let me just actually look. Yes, this came from the Orlando Brown trade. This kid ran a 4.3 at the combine. Not the combine, at his pro day.
At 260?
Yeah.
Wow.
These linebackers nowadays are moving. Like, these big linebackers, I'm telling you, they're getting quick.
Man.
And he had a broad jump of 11 feet.
Oh, I see
So
what
I'm going to say
Ah.
Penn State had some athletes.
Yeah, I think so. And the Ravens can do a lot with that.
But it does say here he's not an actual linebacker. He's a pass rusher. He played outside linebacker
outside.
and rushed the passer.
because they call Khalil Mack an outside linebacker.
Right,
If
right.
You
If
can't see him
If
doing
you
what
play
the
on the
fingers
three,
make.
if you play on a 3-4, if you're an outside linebacker, you're a defensive
Right.
end essentially.
Yeah.
So he's a pass rusher. He's not a like play, traditional linebacker, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Looking for that word there. But it sounds like he's, twitchy at least. But it says he has, no. He doesn't have very many sacks over his whole career. So if you're that twitchy and played at a big time school, why don't you have any sacks?
Yeah.
That seems weird to me, but
that was a big deal. He might not have any sacks last year. Maybe he only had like one. That was a big deal for him that he only had like one or two.
well, I'll say this though: the Ravens turn guys into
Yeah,
things on the
I'm not
defensive
saying
side of the
better,
football.
just
So, and then they took a defensive back out of SMU. Again, another school I didn't watch play this year.
No, I didn't see that.
But they have him listed as a DB, not a corner, not a safety. So it's a guy. They're not sure what position he's going to play. He originally went to UCLA as a running back, but he converted to corner at SMU. But they're saying he has a high likelihood of changing positions again in the NFL. So here's my thing. With these guys that can't stick at a position, sometimes I'm like, maybe they don't have one. Maybe they're just really athletic.
Right.
And they don't, what's his name? Peppers, that came out of Michigan, now plays for the Browns.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, he can play everywhere. I'm like, that's because he's not good enough to stick anywhere.
Yeah.
He's not really big enough to be a good linebacker. He's not fast enough to be a good safety. So they just kind of move him around. But at the same time, they're kind of hiding him.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes not being able to play multiple positions is more out of I'm not good enough to be really good at any position.
Yeah, kind of a tweener. The size doesn't quite fit any position.
But the Ravens don't have a lot of safety depth, so bringing in a guy that can play safety and maybe learn behind their starters may not be a terrible idea. So, Ray, we haven't heard from you in a while. What do you think about the Ravens draft picks here?
I'm not real sure because they're at this weird spot where I don't know, they're still good, but they can't get over the hump. I don't know if it's the quarterback, the way he plays, or what, but they're at a really weird spot, and I'm not sure if the draft picks are going to do anything for him because he's got a unique style of play, which it's really, it takes some work to get used to how he plays because it's just really random.
Well, I will say this: if we want to have a Lamar Jackson conversation, I can do that. But how long can Lamar Jackson run 20 times a game and not get hurt? That's the real question.
Yeah, he's got to start sliding now.
How many times have we all in this room watched the Ravens play, and he lowers his shoulder and takes on a hit from a linebacker?
Yeah.
He's not Cam Newton's size.
No, but
take
look,
those shots. And look what it did.
He's
to
not.
Newton.
But look what it did to Cam, and Cam is 260.
Right.
What is Lamar? 220.
Yeah, and he's a tough guy, but still, those hits build up.
You gotta start sliding, getting out of bounds
Right.
more.
He's dynamic. I'm not taking that away from him.
Oh yeah,
But
fun to watch.
okay, so Bucky Brooks. You guys know Bucky Brooks is the NFL analyst. He said he thought the Ravens should trade up and draft Justin Fields, and let Lamar Jackson walk at the end of the season, and start over. Keep a great defense, keep a good running game, and keep a quarterback that's super athletic on a rookie deal, because Lamar is not going to be able to continue to do this forever.
They better not sign him to a long-term mega deal. They're going to be screwed.
If I'm a Steelers fan or a Browns fan, and they go out and sign him to a 5 or 6 year deal worth $200 million, I go, yes, because there's no way he's making it to the end of that contract as the same player.
Right.
He's going to get hurt.
So he'll make it to the end, but he's not going to be able to run around doing all this bullcrap.
It's just he's not just a little bit of a running quarterback. He's a run first quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They're running design runs for him, and after he can't see his first read is open, he just takes off. He's not sitting there running through reads and waiting for the pocket to collapse. So anybody else got anything on the Ravens?
No, I don't think so.
All right. So I guess we will move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. We've already brought them up once tonight, or at least their quarterback, and Joe Burrow. Speaking of Joe Burrow, in the first round, they went out and got Joe Burrow a great weapon in Jamar Chase. I don't know about you guys, but he was my favorite receiver in this draft.
Yeah, he was
He didn't
amazing.
play, and he was my favorite.
Jamar Chase is a beast, and like I said, he's a receiver at LSU. He missed the season this last year, sat out because of COVID. In the second round, they took Jackson Carman, offensive tackle out of Clemson. And in the third round, they took Joseph Asoa. I apologize if I screwed that up. Defensive end from Texas. They also had 3/4, a fifth, a 2/6, and a 7th. So another team that brought in quite a bit of young talent. A lot of it did come late, so who knows how much of it's going to make the team or stick. But Cincinnati is a team that is not going to be very good again, and we don't know when we're going to see Joe Burrow again because he got hurt later in the season, like mid-season.
Yeah, like week 10, week 9, somewhere in there.
So I don't know if he's supposed to be ready for the beginning of the season or not. But okay, I'm just going to get right to it. I was absolutely stunned they didn't take a offensive lineman with the first pick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I knew
kind
it
of
was
thought.
going to be Chase or that Sewell from Oregon.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be one of those two, but I didn't know which one because they needed both.
Well, I'll say this. I was talking to a Bengals fan about this, and he was very upset. Like, he likes Chase Young. He's like, I don't have anything against Chase Young, but he's like, our quarterback just got hurt because we can't protect him.
Right.
We've got to take an offensive lineman, and the best offensive lineman in the draft was sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a couple guys ahead of them took offensive linemen. The number one receiver and the number one offensive lineman were both on the board, and they went for a weapon. This is typical Bengals stuff. They'll go out and get 3 receivers that are really good, but Carson Palmer and Andy Dalton can't stay off their back long enough to get him the ball consistently.
Yeah, they've got to protect Burrow if they want him to be the franchise quarterback. Now, I'm like you guys. I like Jamar Chase. He was great to watch at LSU.
Him and Justin Fields both.
And of course, he and Burrows have history. But the kid from Oregon, the offensive tackle, Sewell, it's hard to pass him up. He was quite the player. And I think the Lions will be really happy with him.
But they did go offensive line in the second round, where you can still find good talent.
And maybe they're thinking Burrow won't be back much of this year, and it gives them another year to draft even more offensive linemen. I mean, they might have some inside information on his rehab, recovery, whatever, and maybe that's what they're thinking. I'm just speculating.
Very well could be. And I don't know much about this Jackson Carman guy. I did watch Clemson a couple times. Again, I'm not staring at the offensive line. But he says he's a tackle out of Clemson. I assume Clemson has some pretty good tackles.
Yeah.
I mean, they're one of the top people in the nation. Lawrence wasn't under a lot of pressure a lot of times. So I'm going to assume this guy's at least decent. 6'6", 330. So he's a fairly nice sized guy. And then in the third round, they go defensive end out of Texas. Again, another school I didn't watch much of this year. But I'm not really sure what Cincinnati's doing. Obviously trying to get weapons for their quarterback and such, but I don't know what the overall plan is there. And and let's be honest, Cincinnati has been a laughing stock of the league for most of my lifetime.
A long time, yeah.
Well, I saw this thing on TikTok, Drew's daily TikTok on the
Oh, boy.
podcast.
Here we go.
The last time the Bengals won a playoff game, text messaging wasn't around.
Damn.
So no one has ever texted, "Hey, the Bengals just won a playoff game." That's never been said.
I'm not gonna lie to you. That's
Wow.
I'm not even gonna touch on the you got that from TikTok. That was just good information, Drew. I like that. Wow.
Yeah.
I think we should just leave the Bengals at that.
Yeah, that's good.
Let's go. Yeah.
So next on our list is the Cleveland Browns. And with the 26th pick in the first round, which is also weird to say that the Browns are the 26th pick and not like the first pick, they took Greg Newsome II, cornerback out of Northwestern. In the second round, they took, again, excuse me on the name here, Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa, linebacker, Notre Dame. And also in the second round, they took Anthony Swartz, receiver, Auburn. They had no third round pick. They had 2 fourths, 2 fifths, and a sixth. So we start here from the top. Their defense was bad last year. They stayed in games because their running back controlled the clock, and Myles Garrett made plays. So they have a really, really good corner in, what's his name, Ward?
Denzel Ward.
Yes, but Denzel Ward misses half the season every year with injuries. So I think Greg Newsome II, who is a good corner, is insurance there, and you can't ever have enough good corners, let's be honest.
Not in the modern NFL.
Right. Then you go out and get a tackling machine at an inside linebacker position from Notre Dame. Those Notre Dame inside linebackers just seem to swallow up tackles. Now, Notre Dame inside linebackers normally can't cover. I don't know what to tell them about this guy per se, but they usually have coverage issues. And Anthony Swartz was a nice receiver at Auburn. I'm not saying he's a superstar like Jamar Chase, but
I think, was he a jump ball kind of guy? I'm trying to think.
he's 6'1", 185. So I don't know.
I remember them talking about when Georgia played Auburn about. I don't remember if it was him or some other guy that loved to jump up in the air and do that. I'm trying to remember. I see him. Sorry, I wasn't right.
No, you're good. I'm not worried about it.
I was just trying to remember.
I just think the Browns are trying to shore up their defense, and try and take advantage of this window. Personally, I don't think they're ever going to win a Super Bowl because of their quarterback. I don't have much faith in Baker. But I'm sure he doesn't give a shit. So good for you, Baker.
As long as he's got a strip club, he's always got an outlet somewhere else.
Hey, you calm down there. You show Baker the respect he deserves. His commercials are great.
They are great. I love them.
Commercials.
His commercials are awesome, I'm not gonna lie.
Baker at home.
Those are really, that's the best part about Baker Mayfield right there.
Yeah, it is.
His
I love
damn
the
commercials
commercials.
are wonderful. I'll give him all the credit in the world about that. Honestly, I don't have any strong feelings about the Browns draft.
No.
It was very
No.
vanilla, if you ask me.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the last team in the AFC North, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Ooh.
Again, a team that I think can contend, but I think they're a step below those top 4 teams we named earlier. In the first round, with pick number 24, they took Najee Harris, the running back out of Alabama. In the second round, they took Pat Freiermuth, tight end, Penn State. And in the third round, they took Kendrick Green, guard, Illinois. They also had 2 fourths, a fifth, a sixth, and 2 sevenths. Apparently, Pittsburgh was absolutely obsessed with Najee Harris. They were going to trade up for him if they needed to. They were just going to take Najee Harris no matter what. I like Najee Harris. I think he's a quality back. I think he's going to have a career. I don't know why you would be obsessed with him. I don't know why you would be obsessed with taking a running back in the first round. And if your offensive line sucks, it doesn't matter who you put in the backfield. They're not going to be succceccessful.
I was about to say, their offensive line's not that good, so you can put freaking Barry Sanders or any of them back there.
I got a question though. Like, what was wrong with Connor?
I like Connor.
I like
think
Connor.
I think Connor is a solid back. He's not a star. He's a solid back. He couldn't do shit last year. He averaged like 2 yards a carry. But again, a lot of it's offensive line problems.
Right.
And at the end of the year, we saw the offensive line problems even affect Ben.
Oh yeah.
As quickly as Ben was getting the ball out, he couldn't stay upright.
The pre-draft stuff that I looked at all said the same thing over and over about the Steelers. like you said, they're obsessed with Harris. They want him. But all the analysts said the same thing. It's the offensive line. They need to take the best offensive lineman available and get the running back later. And maybe, well, like I said, they were just obsessed with Najee. And he is a really good running back. I like him.
Yeah, he's good. He can catch out of the backfield, which that's what you
Right.
need nowadays in the NFL. So he's got both aspects, running and catching. He's athletic.
But if there's no holes,
Doesn't matter
you
who
can be
you
the
are.
best back around. It's not going to happen.
Here's the other thing. They just lost Bud Dupree to the Titans.
Yeah.
He signed with the Titans. I'm surprised they didn't draft a defensive end.
Yeah, that's true.
You had one of the best 1-2 punches in all of football, pass rusher wise. I mean, with T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree. You know how much easier it makes it to stop T.J. Watt if there's nobody coming on the other side.
Right.
They're like, hey, let's just double team him.
Yeah.
I like T.J. Watt a lot. I think he's really good. He'll have a good season even if he is facing some double teams. But he won't be the same if there's nobody coming off the other side. So I'm a little surprised that they didn't take another defensive end. I don't know much about this tight end out of Penn State.
No, I didn't really watch Penn State
I don't know much about the offensive lineman from Illinois.
I know a little bit. I mean, he was decent because my Rams were looking at him in the third round. Obviously, I think he went before our pick, or no. Yeah, I think he was before our pick. He was at least one of the ones we were looking at, so he's solid. I mean, I don't think anything spectacular, but
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers got a wild card spot, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they fell on their face this year.
yeah, I just hope that Najee and stays healthy. Doesn't get all beat up.
So who's their backup quarterback right now?
Is it Mason Rudolph still?
Probably.
Yeah,
But,
I don't
Mason
have any
Rudolph,
idea.
or what's the other guy? Duck something?
Yeah, Duck.
Duck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even
man.
remember his name. I just remember Duck.
Duck Hodges, is that right?
Yep. Duck Hodges out of
Hey man, his name's Duck. It doesn't matter where he was from.
Yeah.
His name's Duck.
Yeah, duck, goose.
Yeah.
Duck.
That's what the defense on the other side is going to be saying. Duck, I got your ass.
Hey, but speaking of defense though, even without Bud Dupree, the Steelers defense is good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Watts
Yeah.
for real.
Watts for real. What's his name? The safety.
Oh, yeah.
Minka Fitzpatrick.
Minka Fitzpatrick. He's a
Yes.
beast.
He's very good. That was a great pickup.
Yeah. So they've got some really good, and they got some good interior guys. Pruitt, or yeah, Stephen Tuitt, right? Anyway, they have some good interior guys. So the Steelers could be all right. I think they'll, especially again with the defensive head coach and Tomlin, I think they'll ride their defense a little bit more. And hopefully they can get a running game going. Take some pressure off Big Ben's arm, but I just don't see it at this point. Anybody else got anything for the Steelers?
I don't think so.
No.
All right, to the AFC South we go. The first team in the AFC South will be the easiest team to talk about, the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans had no first-round pick, no second-round pick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Their third-round pick, Davis Mills, QB, Stanford. Their second third-round pick, Nico Collins, receiver, Michigan. No fourth, 2 fifths, a sixth, and no seventh.
Yeah.
What an awful draft. How do you be one of the worst teams in the league and not have a first or a second?
Right.
They traded away.
That's
everybody.
No, I mean I know how they did it, but I'm saying how is this even possible? You'd think
Right.
if you put this much draft capital into trades that you'd have a bunch of talent and be really good.
Yeah. I mean, my Rams traded we don't have a first-round draft pick forever. But at least we got Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, Texans ain't got nothing to show for anything.
yeah.
They got
And they let JJ go.
we don't even know if Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know if Deshaun Watson was going to play. Now we're not going to know if Deshaun Watson's allowed to play.
Right.
I mean, now we've gone to two different extremes here. Deshaun was going to try and pull an NBA player here and throw his weight around. But now it's, are you going to jail? Are you going to get suspended? Like, what are we doing? This is a whole different animal. Honestly, I don't even know if I want to get into it.
No, that's just a whole weird situation.
Yeah.
I don't even know this quarterback from Stanford.
Nope, I didn't watch Stanford play.
I mean, Stanford wasn't very good.
Nope.
And their quarterback wasn't really highly sought after. He obviously went in the third round. But it also kind of says to me, with your first pick in the entire draft, you took a quarterback, so you're scared.
Yeah.
The franchise is scared. I don't know what to do. And free agents aren't signing there.
No.
Well,
I mean,
why
who
would
wants
you want
to go there
to?
when you got no picks? You got nothing to show for everything,
Literally,
And
no confidence in the front
everything
office.
J.J. Watt did for that town and that team,
Yeah.
he really did everything for them.
I feel sorry. I kind of feel sorry for these guys.
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the franchise. I've actually seen them play. Wade and I actually went and watched. See my brother in Houston and went to see the Texans and the Rams play. And I like the Texans, and I like J.J. Watt, and I like some of the other players they've had.
I like Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I do too.
I think he's
love him
super
at Clemson.
talented. He's exciting to watch. I liked him coming in Clemson. I thought he was really good coming out.
Yeah.
He's done some really fantastic things on the field.
Well, I liked Hopkins when he was there.
Yeah.
He had some other really good players.
I mean,
what the heck
Andre-
are they doing?
Yeah. Andre Johnson was a beast there for
Oh,
years.
yeah.
This is great.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Aaron
Aaron
Foster.
Foster,
Man, he led the league in rushing 2 or 3 times. They've had some really good
Oh,
players
yeah.
down there.
It's sad to see the franchise in this state.
I don't know if there's much more to say about the Texans. There's
Yeah.
whatever. Well, here's where it's going to stick out that we're short a player here. Our next team is the Indianapolis Colts, which is Ray's favorite team. But as we all know, it's also Wade's favorite team, and Wade's not here.
If you haven't noticed, an hour into the episode.
Right. Wade is having he has a sick child, so he is not able to join us this evening. We encourage us to go ahead and get this over with since we're like 3 weeks late. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Get well soon, Callie. So the Indianapolis Colts in the first round with pick number 21 took Cody Paye, defensive end, Michigan. And in the second round took, excuse me on the pronunciation here, Deo Adeyingbo, defensive end, Vanderbilt. They had no third round pick. They had a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, and 2 7ths. I'll say this before I kick it to Ray. I told Wade before the draft, you all need pass rushers. And Wade's like, I think we need to replace Anthony Costanzo, the really good offensive tackle that retired, and which isn't a terrible idea, replacing offensive line depth. But I was like, guys, you really need a pass rusher. And then they went defensive end in the first round and the second round. So I think Ballard agreed with me. But I will say this. This guy they took in the second round is not supposed to play this year because he tore his Achilles at his pro day. So he will be a rookie next year, I guess, essentially. But now I'll kick it over to Ray. What did you think of the Colts draft, buddy?
I mean, with this, valuable information you just told me about a defensive player tearing a vital part of his body. I mean, that kind of sucks. But I mean, we really did need to jack our defense. I mean, the offense is pretty solid at every spot. I mean, that's good. Probably the biggest part of that Bills loss that we had in the playoffs was the defense. We couldn't stop anybody. We also had a quarterback problem last year in the playoffs.
Philip Rivers.
You didn't pass the ball past 30 yards.
Right. I mean, he wasn't a problem, but I mean, you have to have a certain kind of skill set to throw to T.Y. Hilton.
I agree with that. T.Y. Hilton is a speed receiver like stretch the field.
So, I mean, we got the quarterback. We drafted the defense. I think we're good. Sounds good to me.
Fair enough. And by the way, the reason you didn't have a third round pick is because it went to the Eagles in the Carson Wentz trade.
So there you go. So
So,
we got what we wanted.
I'd say Carson Wentz is
Yeah.
definitely worth a third round.
Hell yeah.
I would say.
All right, so you, as the Colts fan today, you seem to be fairly happy with the draft.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you guys did a good job. Obviously, I said you guys needed pass rushers. You drafted pass rushers. So I think it was a good draft for you guys. Your defense was already good.
Yeah.
I think you guys were a top 10 defense already. So adding a pass rusher, a freak of an athlete, is Paye out of Michigan. Like he was like doing things at the combine we've never seen out of somebody his size before. So now whether that doesn't always translate on the football field, but it's not a bad place to start. The last time we saw somebody really big do really, really freaky things at the combine was Myles Garrett, and that's worked out all right for the Browns. So if he has Myles Garrett's work ethic, I think that'll go a long way.
Well, not even with that anyway. When you get somebody in there, who kind of shows up everybody, and you kind of got to get the people motivated, who's already there, get them pumped up and want to play, and getting that starting spot.
Well, guys like Shared, who led the team in sacks last year, or Sheard, or however you say it, it's probably like, man, they just took my position in the first round. I better hit the gym.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you're right, Ray. I'm sure that does motivate people, and maybe because of this draft pick, Sheard has a even better season this year.
Yeah.
And then when this next kid comes in next year, then it's like now we have a real competition on our hands. We'll see. But I think the Colts did well for themselves. The only concern I have, because y'all just signed Eric Fisher, who was a good offensive tackle, so I think he's going to replace Costanzo.
Yeah.
But the only concern I have is your receiving core. I like T.Y. Hilton. He's getting a little older, though. I think Pitts is turned into a nice weapon, but he's young. I think you might need one or two more guys. You guys have plenty of cap space, so I'm not saying you guys can't sign a free agent. But I was just wondering about the receiving core.
I think I was really, as an underrated, offense that we were at last year, with all these, newer receiving guys, I was really, satisfied with what we had. And then come this year, we could build upon that, get them in the gym, work them out, get them used to the offense again, with Wentz here. And Wentz can probably, put them a step forward. Maybe we got something more than you think.
I hope so. I mean, Wentz has a big arm, so that ought to play with Hilton.
Yeah.
I think they have the potential to be good together.
So now we got, we got a deep threat. We got some, mid-range guys. We got everybody mixed up on the field instead of everybody just kind of battling in the middle of the field because that's where, Rivers likes to throw. Now we got a mixed field. Now we got, offense going on.
Right, and let's not forget here, this isn't a drop back and pass 50 times a game offense. They like to run the ball.
Oh, yeah. And we got a dual threat back there, too.
Well, Taylor's a beast. He's a dual threat back, but you're also getting Mack back this year.
Yeah.
And I believe, and Naheem Hines.
Yeah, Hines.
So you guys got a nice backfield back there. I mean, Mack pretty much missed the whole season last year with injury, and you guys were perfectly fine. Taylor stepped in and was the bell cow, and Hines relieved him, and you guys were fine.
All right.
So getting Mack back to add to that stable, if you have an injury, you should still be fine. Like I like what you guys are doing in Indianapolis. I really do.
Yeah, and this coach has really, showed what he's made of.
I like
after
it.
the Chuck Pagano era, which I was cool with, but I mean, it just kind of fell short. Because I think he lacked what offense he could, bring to the table because he's a defensive guy. So we brought in a new coach, and he's shown what he's made of on both sides of the field. So I'm really happy with what's going on.
Well, I will say this. I am not a Colts fan. I'm obviously an Eagles fan, but I am rooting for Carson Wentz to do well. So I guess through that, I'll be rooting for Indianapolis to do well.
And we'll accept all that you bring toward the table.
All right. Anybody got anything else on the Colts before we move on?
Just good luck.
All right. Well, we have an interesting one here. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh, boy.
a terrible team with a brand new head coach, a boatload of draft picks, some of which came from your Los Angeles Rams, and a boatload of cap space. I think Urban Meyer knew what he was doing when he did this job.
Yeah, I think so.
He said, "Oh, $80 million in cap. Oh, a bunch of draft picks,
Number 1 pick.
and the number 1 overall pick. Maybe so."
He gets to go back to Florida.
And Tim Tebow in free agency.
All right, let's run all these draft picks real quick, then we can talk more about Tim Tebow. With the first pick in the first round, Trevor Lawrence, QB, Clemson. With the 25th pick in the first round, Travis Etienne, running back, Clemson. In the second round, Tyson Campbell, corner, Georgia. Second round, as well, so 2 seconds. Walker Little, tackle, Stanford. Third round, Andre Cisco, safety, Syracuse. They also had 2 fourths, a fifth, and a sixth. But guys, that's a lot of top of the draft talent there.
Oh, yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, I think we all agree, is the real deal.
Yeah.
I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a hell of a guy, a hell of a pro. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback for a long time, as long as the Jaguars don't ruin him first.
Yeah.
Right.
Their offensive line was serviceable last year. It was not great, but it was not terrible like we talked about with the Bengals or the Jets. It was serviceable last year. So hopefully they can keep him upright. Travis Etienne was like the top running back in the draft this year. But then Urban Meyer just announced yesterday that he will not line up in the backfield at all.
That's what I was wondering when they picked him because they had that Robinson.
They're going to play him in the slot for the entirety of camp and preseason, he said. And he goes, the worst thing that will happen is our running back gets better at catching the ball.
Okay.
All right.
So they do have Robinson, who had a 1,400 yards rushing last year. So, I mean, they have a running back. I thought they would use at least Etienne as their third down back. He's so good out of the backfield catching the ball, and he's quick. I thought he would at least get some snaps, but hey, whatever. What do I know? But then they went corner from Georgia. Drew, you know much about this kid?
He was the opposite corner from Eric Stokes, the one that the Packers took. So he was the number 2 corner on the other side.
Gotcha.
So said Georgia had a good defense. They always have good defense. So he was a good corner. I think that's a good pickup for them.
Okay. And then they took some big tackle out of Stanford, 6'7", 315.
Lawrence has got to love that.
Yeah, I mean, I figure he'll start opposite of Robinson, the big kid out of Alabama that took a couple years ago. Maybe. I don't know much about their offensive line. And then they took a safety out of Syracuse, Andre Cisco. How did the Urban Meyer draft go, guys? His first draft.
No.
I think he did all right.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing he's looking at is you've got to change the culture. And he's bringing in 2 Clemson guys at the top that are winners. And they've done nothing but win.
Well, I've heard stuff about Trevor Lawrence. He's never lost a regular season football game before.
How many national title games has Etienne played in? I mean, he was there before Trevor Lawrence, wasn't he? But didn't he play in a national title as a freshman?
Yeah, probably.
With Deshaun Watson.
With Deshaun Watson. I mean, this kid has done nothing but win for 4 years. And so they're going to bring that to the locker room. And you start with a bunch of young guys and guys that are used to winning. And you start turning that culture around. It may take them a little bit, but you got to start somewhere.
And it's nice to have young guys, though, too, because you can train the young guys. If you got a bunch of old guys and you bring in a new coach like that, it's hard to break the old guys coming in the locker room.
You're absolutely right. And somebody that's coming into college, like Urban Meyer, you have to treat pros and college guys differently. You know, there's these big egos that need coddled in the pros. And if you bring in a whole bunch of young guys like this, like you said, changing the
Culture.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Culture.
Culture. Thank you. Changing the culture. It's easier to do when you have all these young guys, and one
Exactly.
of them plays the most important position on the field.
Yeah.
And he's a leader. I mean, that's what everybody says about Trevor Lawrence, is that the kid is just a leader. He has been from the day he stepped on the field at Clemson.
So here's the final question from me for the Jaguars. Does Urban Meyer's system work in the pros? Because Urban Meyer's quarterbacks don't work in the pros.
Well, this isn't Urban Meyer's quarterback right now.
No, it's not. I'm just saying, but the system made them look really, really good. So does the system continue to make quarterbacks look really good, or is the system the reason they're used to a system that doesn't work?
Right. Yeah, that would be the question. And I wonder, hopefully he's flexible enough to adapt.
He doesn't force.
You know, he knows what works with Lawrence, and you know, let's adapt to the NFL, change a little bit.
Well, it's probably going to be like, here's 3 games. Urban, show us what you got. And there's probably going to be about 3 or 4 talks. And there's probably going to be, some meetings. And about 8 or 9 games, there's going to be probably a hybrid of an offense going on. Because, I mean, you got to take in, the rookie coach. Who, I mean, he's not really a rookie coach, but he's a rookie coach.
Right.
And you got to tweak his system to match what you want going on with the organization. So he's going to throw in his stuff. Jaguars are going to throw in their stuff, and it's probably going to maybe mesh well, or it may not. But we're going to see what happens.
I think Urban Meyer walked into a good situation,
I think so.
and I think if he's willing to learn, I'll put it this way: Andy Reid every offseason watches a ton of tape of college football and steals plays. So, like, as long as you don't have such a big ego that you're like Chip Kelly,
Right.
there's like, this is the way I coach. This is the way I run my offense. I'm not changing it. You will fit to me, so on and so forth. I think if you don't have that mindset and you're willing to change and learn and move things that don't work or remove things that don't work, I think he can be successful. Let's just hope there's not another health scare, because he seems to have those quite often.
Right. Yeah.
Anybody else got anything on the Jaguars?
Nope.
All righty, let's move on to the last team in this division, the Tennessee Titans. Another team I think fits in there with Pittsburgh, where they're a step below those top 4 teams, but they're still a good playoff team, maybe a contender on a good run. In the first round, with pick 22, they took Caleb Fairley, cornerback, Virginia Tech. Second round, they took Dylan Radins, offensive tackle, North Dakota State. Third round, they took Monty Rice, linebacker, Georgia.
He's a stud.
Also in the third round, Elijah Molden, cornerback, Washington. They also had 2 fourths, a fifth, 2 sixths, no seventh. All right, so the Tennessee Titans added Bud Dupree, like we talked earlier, so added a good pass rusher. And then they went out and got 2 corners in the draft, added an offensive tackle, and a linebacker who Drew just told us is a stud.
He is. He flies around and makes plays. And, yeah, he's a good linebacker. He's similar to Roquan Smith a little bit. Not as big in like middle linebacker, he's like an outside linebacker, I would say. And he's a little bit more, probably quicker than Roquan Smith, but he flies after the ball. He'll hit you. He's a good linebacker. It's a good pickup.
Well, I will say this. Tennessee every year seems to have a guy that comes onto the team that we don't really know a ton about, and they become a good linebacker.
Yeah.
What is their head coach's name? I'm drawing a blank here. He used to be a linebacker, didn't he?
For the Patriots.
For the Patriots.
Is that Vilma? Not Vilma.
No, it's not Vilma. It's
not Vilma. It's well, I can see his face.
I know, I can too. Yeah, stocky white guy, mustache.
Yeah.
Oh man, we'll think of it. Mike Vrabel. Thank you. Vrabel, I think, coaches the front 7 really, really well.
Yeah.
But my other question is, They didn't draft offense at all, and they lost their offensive coordinator. He's now the head coach of the Falcons. So, I mean, obviously, a big chunk of their offense is, hey, let's turn around and give it to this big monster behind me and watch him run over some guys on his way to the end zone, which is going to work until it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because he can't continue to do this forever. I mean, we watched, not me, but you watched, and we've all seen highlights of Earl Campbell, who was, this freak monstrosity that ran over everybody. But his career is like 8 years long because your body just can't do that forever. He's a beast, and I think he can keep doing this for a couple more years maybe, but kind of like we talked about with Lamar, it's only a matter of time.
We've seen what happened last year in the playoffs. They ran, but they stopped it, and they didn't have any variety in the offense. So it's kind of puzzling to see that they didn't add any weapons to from the draft to the team on any kind of offensive level.
Well, they did take an offensive tackle, though.
Well, I mean...
No, I'm not saying that it's not a weapon, but I'm saying maybe they think by improving the offensive line, they improve the run game, which their passing game is predicated on the run game, yes.
Runs working the play action.
Yeah, their play action game is really where they burn guys. So, they also lost Corey Davis, though. Their number 2 receiver went to the Jets.
Yeah, that hurts.
So really, they have a stud number 1 in A.J. Brown, who's a complete beast. But now, who's their number 2?
Did they lose their tight end in New England?
Yeah, Jonnu Smith went to New England.
Right. So they're losing ground on offense.
Like, I don't know what to think about the Titans. They may take a step back this year.
Well, Capra?
No, because they gave that big contract to Tannehill.
Yeah. Well, and, with Tannehill's history at Miami and other places, he seemed to click in Tennessee. And I don't know whether it was the offensive coordinator, whether it was the head coach. But if the head coach is gone, is Tannehill going to regress back to more what we saw at Miami and other places, or is he going to continue with what he's been doing?
That's true. That's true. I mean, I kind of threw up Tannehill's struggles in Miami with terrible coaching because he can't seem to get a quarterback to do anything well. I mean, he's been Darnold's coach for the last 3 years.
Right.
So maybe there is something to that, or maybe losing the offensive coordinator in Tennessee will hurt him. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anybody got anything else for Tennessee?
Good luck.
So at the end of that's the end of that division, Ray. How do you feel about the rest of your division? Is it a winnable division? Do you feel strongly about winning it? Or
yeah, I mean, we look really good. It's going to take some, some tweaks from Tennessee to give us a run for money, but I mean...
You mean you're not scared of Houston?
No. No, not at all. And Jacksonville's, probably a couple years away from even touching us anyway, so... Unless, Tennessee picks up some kind of offensive threat, we're winning that straightforward.
All right, well, you heard it here first. Ray is calling the Colts win the division. All right, so we go on to our...
12-4.
All right, there you go.
12-5. You can't say 12-4.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Drew's called us out.
All right, sorry.
Sorry, guys.
13-4 then.
That sounds so weird.
You notice Drew went 12-5 and Ray goes 13-4.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We're picking up that extra one. Don't get us wrong.
So we move on to our final AFC division, the AFC West, which should be interesting this year, I believe. But we'll start with the Denver Broncos, who in the first round, pick number 9, took my favorite corner, Patrick Surtain, the second cornerback, Alabama. I really wished he'd have fell to the Eagles. Second round, Javonte Williams, running back, North Carolina. Third round, Quinn Miners, guard, Wisconsin Whitewater. Wisconsin Whitewater. And also in the third round, Baron Browning, linebacker, Ohio State. They had no fourth, 2 fifths, a sixth, and 3 sevenths. So let's start off with the obvious thing here with Denver. I still don't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
I think Bridgewater could be a bridge. No pun intended there. He's an improvement over Locke. I know you guys are Mizzou fans. I thought Locke was garbage in the draft, and he's kind of turned out to be garbage.
And done much.
But I think Bridgewater is a step up for sure from Locke. But I don't think he's a team that, or a quarterback that takes you to a Super Bowl. And that's what this defense is trying to do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Their defense is stacked.
And with Surtain.
And they picked up Kyle Fuller.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Oh, yeah, they did. I forgot about that.
So,
call there, Drew.
They are tough.
In a typical Denver Broncos fashion, they go out and get a power back and say, "Hey, we're going to run you into the line 20 times a game." They already have Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. Are they planning on cutting one of them?
I'm getting
Ooh.
Maybe.
Wow.
But he is a big physical back. He breaks a lot of tackles, or at least he did in college.
Yeah.
And that's the type of guy that they like to bring in and run behind that offensive line.
Yeah,
Although they just lost their right tackle for the season to a torn Achilles. So
I watched North Carolina a couple times. The running back was impressive.
yeah,
The kid can play, so that was a good pickup. The third rounder, again, I'm showing how bad my draft is for the Rams, was another offensive lineman that the Rams were hoping to get. This kid from Wisconsin Whitewater was actually pretty highly thought of as an interior lineman. And I think, if I remember correctly, the Broncos drafted one spot in front of us in the third round. And that's when, after they took him, I think we traded down. Because I think that's who we were targeting. And I had looked a little bit. I mean, the kid looked pretty good. So it's probably a solid offensive line pickup for him, too.
well, I mean that may be true. I don't know, but I definitely didn't watch Wisconsin Whitewater this year.
Yeah. It's just stuff I read because I was researching for the Rams.
But they go out and get a linebacker. Again, another position where the Broncos seem to be able to produce linebackers. So, and he's out of Ohio State. I feel like he'll be all right.
Yeah.
I don't know much about him. But I think the Broncos did well for themselves. I mean, the rumor draft night was they were trading for Aaron Rodgers, and obviously that didn't happen.
There's still rumors about it. So.
Yeah, I'm
Really?
sure we'll touch on that when we get to Green Bay. But if they do that, then they will be legit contenders for a championship. But I just don't see it. Anything else on the Broncos?
No, they're really just befuddled about the quarterback, but I mean, you already explained it, so I'm in the loop now.
Yeah. All right, now we move on to the Kansas City Chiefs, who had no first-round draft pick due to the Orlando Brown trade, which Orlando Brown is a legitimately good tackle, so I think that wasn't a terrible move on their part, especially after we watched the Super Bowl. And the second round, the Chiefs take Nick Bolton, linebacker, Mizzou.
Yeah. He's fun to watch. They're going to like him.
My problem is he's 5'11". I didn't realize he was that short.
Yeah, he's not real tall, but man, he flies around the field. And tackling machine. Made a couple interceptions, and he'll give him some. At the worst, he'll give him some depth, but I think they'll get a lot of good out of him.
Also in the second round, they took Creed Humphrey, center, Oklahoma. And then no third round, a fourth, 2 fifths, and a sixth, no seventh. Not a lot of draft capital here for Kansas City, but this is where the no draft capital is a little more good. Yeah, you've been in the Super Bowl back-to-back years. You won one. You've got a franchise quarterback. You've got a lot of weapons around him.
More linemen.
Right. You just traded for a big tackle. You just drafted a center and a linebacker because their defense isn't very good. They have a couple studs here and there. Tyron Matthew. What's his name? Earl Clark. His first name. I know it's Clark,
And,
but
shoot. Jones, Chris Jones.
Yeah, Chris Jones. Yeah, absolutely. Those guys, but around them, there's not a ton of talent on that side of the football. So I think bringing in a really athletic linebacker could go a long ways for them.
Right. Well, he's a real high energy guy, and again, I'm showing how bad the Rams are. We needed a center, and this Creed Humphrey was one that was considered in our second round before we took the wide receiver, because this kid out of Oklahoma can be nasty. I mean, he has a little bit of an attitude, and he plays tough.
Again,
So,
I know I've
Chiefs
said this.
did okay.
I know I've said this a couple times tonight for a couple of schools, but Oklahoma seems to be able to produce offensive linemen.
Yep.
Yeah, there's certain schools that can produce a lot. Oklahoma's one.
Yep. Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Notre Dame. Those are big offensive line schools.
Oh, yeah.
Start.
So I think the Chiefs did well on the small window of capital they had. Ray, you got any thoughts on the Chiefs?
I mean, just from the Super Bowl decimation that happened to him from the Patriots, the Buccaneers. I would have thought they would have just, straight up picked all offensive line, whatever they could grab, because that's where they just got decimated from, was the offensive line. I know there were some injuries here and there, whatever happened, what have you, but it was really just, the offensive line that just killed them at all times. And, I mean, it's nice to have another, defensive player to pick up, but I would have probably put more focus. I mean, they traded for the guy, and that's cool. But, I would have pounded, 2, 3 backups that you could probably, work with and develop and what have you. And, I mean, they did all right, I guess.
All right. We will move on to the not Oakland, the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'm probably going to say Oakland again before this is over. But in their first pick, at pick number 17 in the first round, they surprised everybody by taking Alex Leatherwood, tackle, Alabama. In the second round, they took Trayvon Moehrig, safety, TCU. In the third round, they took Malcolm Kuntz, I believe, defensive end, Buffalo. And then also in the third round, Divine Diablo, safety / linebacker, Virginia Tech. They also had a fourth, a fifth, no sixth, and a seventh. The Raiders do this every single year under Gruden. They take somebody in the first round, and we all go, really?
Yeah.
There? Now,
Yeah.
Alex Leatherwood is a good player.
Oh, yeah. He's a good tackle.
Just like the
Ruggs was.
well, Ruggs
Yeah,
wasn't a
Ruggs.
super big reach, but I meant the defensive end from Clemson they took 2 years ago.
Right.
Well, we all went, he's good, but you couldn't have got him in the second.
Yeah.
I think Leatherwood falls in that same category. He's good. He'll probably be a starter for him, and he'll have a nice NFL career. But this was pick 17, and there was a lot of good guys sitting there. I can't remember what offensive tackles were sitting there still. I know Paye was gone.
The Darashaw from
Oh, no, I wasn't talking about Paye. Paye's
the kid
defensive
from
end.
Oregon.
I'm talking about, Sewell. Sorry.
Sewell,
Sewell.
yeah.
Yeah, I misspoke. I apologize. Sewell had went before him, but I thought there was a couple more. And Slater went before him too, didn't he?
Right.
Yeah, so that's my bad. So the top two guys have gone off the board, but I feel like there was 2 or 3 other guys between Leatherwood and that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know they're trying to build a culture in, again, I almost said Oakland, Las Vegas, where they're trying to bring in guys off winning teams in college. They keep drafting Alabama and Clemson players over and over and over again. Outside of that, I felt like they were trying to recreate the Khalil Mack magic by taking some super athletic defensive end out of Buffalo with their third round pick. And then they got some safety at TCU and another guy that they can't decide whether he's a safety or a linebacker. But everything I read said he's too small to play linebacker, so they're either going to put a bunch of weight on him or he's going to move to safety. And loosen up his hips.
Yeah, hopefully be fast.
So I don't know. I will say this though, before I move on to somebody else. Last year, before the season started, all we heard in the national media was people making fun of the Raiders. Made fun of them, made fun of them, made fun of them. Their draft was terrible. Their free agency decisions are terrible. Coach Gruden and Mayock are out of time. They're out of date. They don't know what they're doing in today's NFL. They were 500 last year. They improved quite a bit, and they beat some good teams. At the beginning of the season last year, they went in and beat somebody good, and then they turned around and beat the Chiefs. Oh, they beat Indianapolis. That's who it was.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, they beat Indianapolis and the Chiefs. The Raiders were not a bad football team last year. So yeah, I'll kick it over to you, Doug. What'd you think?
I think, like you said earlier, I think Leatherwood is going to be a really good player. I think this is a little bit of a reach at this spot, and they've done that a couple times. They keep bringing in good guys that will play, maybe not getting as much quality for their picks as they could. But like you said, they are starting to build a team. I don't know that drafting this way is ever going to build a championship team. But we'll see.
Well, I think if you're going to draft this way, you have to hit deeper into the draft.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like with Darren Waller, he's a undrafted free agent, and all of a sudden he's a top 3 tight end in football.
Yeah.
Those are the types of things that have to happen in order for you to continue to build this way. You have to hit with later draft picks, and you have to get some luck with some of the guys like Darren Waller. Drew, Ray, you got something?
I'm just wondering how much longer Gruden has on his contract.
8 more years.
Wow. Okay, because he come in so hype, like the ceiling area hype, and really nothing has happened yet, except for a minor improvement. So I'm really wondering when this, winning culture is going to hit Las Vegas, because it really hadn't hit yet. And he come in so hype. He's like, oh yeah, Gruden's back in from announcing. He's going to go in and change everything. It's taken a long time here, and I'm wondering when it's actually going to, be a contender level, threat. And I'm really confused on what's going on.
Well, I think I'll give you a couple things here, Ray. I don't know if they're ever going to be a Super Bowl contender, but there are a couple things holding them back. First off, John Gruden's offensive system is, they say, the most complicated in football. It takes guys a year or two to get used to it and to learn it all. Carr made a big jump from 2 years ago to this last season. Carr looked like a different quarterback. So him making a jump will help. Last year you had rookie receivers and young tight ends playing in it for the first time without a camp because of COVID. So maybe that holds them back. Secondly, they play in the same division as the Chiefs.
That's true, yeah.
So
the division's getting tougher. I have my comments about the Chargers.
I have some comments about the Chargers as well. Yes. That's I guess that's my rebuttal to that. Maybe they won't ever do it. I don't know, but I'm saying there are a couple of things that I don't want to say that he should turn around a terrible team in 2 years. I think teams are too quick to fire coaches anyway.
No, you're right on that one. Yeah, for sure.
Look at the worst teams in football. They fire their coach all the time.
Yeah.
You need some consistency. How many coaches have the Lions gone through in your lifetime, Drew? 20? And you're 16 years old?
They went through a bunch.
It's crazy.
I went through at least, I'm going through my head right now, I see at least 6 different dudes.
But 2 of the most successful teams of your life, the Steelers and the Patriots.
The Steelers have had 3.
The Steelers have had 3 coaches in the last 70 years. Because Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin, they've all been there forever. That's like Doug's whole life.
Right, yeah.
That's the 3 coaches I remember the Steelers.
We go from 6 Lions head coaches from my lifetime. I'm 17 to my dad.
Right.
I'm almost 60 with 3.
And Bill Belichick has been the coach there for 20-some years.
Right.
Yeah.
So, there is something to keeping the coach. Don't get me wrong. Some coaches deserve to be fired. I'm not saying we should never fire coaches, but sometimes you got to give them a chance. Like the Browns and the Lions and those guys just fired coach after coach after coach after coach. The Browns fired Bill Belichick.
Right.
So I don't know.
No, I mean I understand what you're saying. Like we're not going to just up and fire Gruden. I mean he's battle tested here, but I mean you can't come in hype as well as he was, and then take forever to do this thing.
I understand what you're saying. There was a ton of hype, probably to his detriment. Really,
Yeah.
He should have told them to calm down. Like they acted like Michael Jordan was coming to town or something.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it was, really.
Yeah.
Now, another thing to keep in mind with the Raiders is moving. Franchises moving creates a lot of disruption, and it takes a while to settle in. I know, when Houston went to Tennessee, when, Rams going,
Say, Devin, you should know about the Rams.
To St. Louis and then back to L.A.
Yeah.
It takes a while. I mean, free agents, other players getting settled in new cities. You got to give them a little time to rework all that stuff too.
This is off the football subject, but about teams moving. Oakland A's or supposedly might be moving.
Bro, we could see Oakland losing the A's, Warriors, and Raiders within 2 years.
Right.
What?
I saw ESPN the other day.
The Warriors moved to San Francisco. The Raiders moved to Las Vegas, and now they're saying the A's might end up in Tennessee, of all places.
Yeah, they said the A's are thinking about moving. It's been okay.
What?
but
To
somebody-
Tennessee?
Yeah, they're saying they might end up in was it Nashville or
Yeah, I think
Memphis?
One of those two, yeah.
They're gonna end up in them or they're Portland. Those are the cities they're talking about, and it's because they won't replace the Oakland Coliseum, which they say is the worst stadium in all of baseball.
It's awful. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
unless they approve building them a stadium, they're moving, and Oakland will have lost 3 sports teams in 2 years.
Nope, that's understandable. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of understandable because they won't give them a new stadium, but at the same time, like, sometimes I wonder myself, like, how much is it the city's responsibility to pay for these stadiums? But at the same time, if you're Oakland, you're losing a lot of revenue by losing 3 sports teams,
Yeah.
and at least one of them is really, really good. I mean, the Warriors are, contender. I mean, this year they're down, but Klay Thompson's out. But I mean,
They're probably going to make the playoffs.
yeah, and the A's have the second best record in baseball this year.
The A's actually been good the last couple of years.
So I mean, that could be really bad for Oakland.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what goes on in Seattle basketball culture. Is
Yeah.
you got to replace the stadium because that's been dead for like 20 years now. So I mean, I understand the whole arena situation. Yeah.
Sure is. All right. Well, now we move on to the last team in the AFC, the Los Angeles Chargers.
They should be the San Diego Chargers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and there's just too many damn teams in Los Angeles.
We got 2 for basketball, 2 for football. We have 2 for baseball too.
Yeah, the Angels and the Dodgers. Yeah, and
Yeah,
they got
there's 2
and they
in
got a
hockey.
hockey team, and they got an MLS team.
It's
It's
too much.
Yep.
True.
I'm sure they have a WNBA team. I just can't think of it off the top of my head.
Sparks.
Yeah,
so
so
Yeah,
they play-
Sparks.
don't they play?
Yeah, they play as Staples. Yeah.
All right, so the Chargers draft with the 13th pick in the first round. They take Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle, Northwestern. In the second round, they take Asante Samuel Jr., cornerback, Florida State. In the third round, they take Josh Palmer, receiver, Tennessee. In the third round, they take Trey McKitty, tight end, Georgia. Did I pronounce that right, Drew?
I think so. Yeah, he was one of the 2 tight ends.
They also had a 4th, a 5th, 2 6th, and a 7th. The Chargers, another young team with some good talent, brought in a bunch more young talent. I loved their first pick of Rashawn Slater. He was arguably the best offensive tackle in the draft. If not, he's the second. Yes, and they needed to protect their quarterback. This is what the Bengals should have done, in my opinion. They going to protect his blind side for a long time, should be anyway. That's a great pickup. Asante Samuel Jr. played at my favorite college football team. I loved him, and when we passed up on him in the second round, I was pissed. And so I think Asante Samuel Jr. to add to one of my favorite DBs in all of football, another Florida State alumni, Darwin James. Maybe the best safety in all of football. Because I don't know. I'm getting worked up thinking about the Eagles missing out on these great, wonderful DBs. And Josh Palmer, the receiver out of Tennessee, he's a nice receiver.
Yeah, I watched him when they played Georgia. He's a good receiver.
Bigger body guy.
Yeah,
He's a nice. He can do the jump ball stuff. He's a little bigger, but he's not purely a jump ball guy. He's got some speed. I think he ran a 4.4 at the pro day. Yep. And Keelan Allen is a pure jump ball guy at this point in his career. But he does it well. He's like 6'5". He bodies guys up. He does well. And then you take a tight end who I don't know much about him. Maybe Drew can speak to it, but he's a big target. He's 6'5", 245.
He was one of the tight ends. He know how to block, so he'll be able to stand out there. If you got Georgia, you got to know how to block your tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Then he can catch the ball. Then did they lose their tight end? Did he go? Did they?
Hunter Henry, yeah, he signed with the Patriots.
Yeah, I was say, so they're looking for a tight end. So I think he'll fit in nicely with Herbert and the rest of the offense in LA.
And didn't they get a new coach?
Yeah.
I can't think of who it is.
Who did they?
Yeah. Did they get the defensive coordinator from the Rams?
Was that them that did that?
He went someplace.
He did. He did. He is a head coach. So
We got a new defensive coordinator.
Brandon Staley.
Yeah, I think that's him.
Yeah, he was like a tight end coach or something, wasn't he? Or is he defensive coordinator?
I think he was our defensive
coordinator.
Yeah, I thought he was our defensive
Well,
coordinator.
I will say this. The Chargers head coach last year, and again, I'm blanking on his name. I can see his face in my head. Yeah. Either way, I think he's a good coordinator. I think he was over his head as an offensive or as a head coach. He made so many errors last year, especially in the fourth quarter of games. Clock management errors, stupid play call errors. Whether that's him or the offensive coordinator, I'm not sure. But like as the head coach, I feel like that's part of your responsibility. Like you hear a stupid call come in over the headset and be like, "No, we're not doing that. Like, what are you doing?" So I think as long as this guy knows what he's doing, I think that could be an upgrade there. But I really like Herbert. I liked him coming out. I didn't understand all the bashing of Herbert that went on during the draft process. And then last year he proved a lot of so-called experts wrong. Yeah. And I thought it was pretty fun. Yeah. So I think they have a promising situation going for him. And getting a great offensive lineman to protect him is a great step in that direction.
Well, great offensive lineman, great corner, solid receiver. I think they had a great draft. And, put that on top of Herbert last year. I think the Chargers are up and coming.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the running back's name? He was hurt a bunch last year.
Oh, starts on the E. I was on my fantasy team.
I know. I had him on my
shoot.
I gotta look his name if I can't. But he was hurt.
Yeah, he missed most of the season last year. Both my top running backs on my fantasy team, McCaffrey and him, both missed most of the season. But yeah, they have a good nucleus around
Austin
him. Eckler, thank you. Yeah. Good job, Drew. And like I said, Darwin James missed most of the season last year. He's returning. They added Asante Samuel to that DB group. That this team could be, and they still have Joey Bosa.
Yeah.
Yep. I think Chargers make the playoffs.
If they're healthy, that's been their thing over the last couple years.
If they stay healthy,
if they stay healthy, I think they could very easily make the playoffs. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender yet, but they could sneak in as a wild card team because they're not going to beat the Chiefs in the division.
I'd say they're second.
Yeah, they very well could be. It depends on what happens with the Broncos. The Broncos could be the decider there. What happens because the Broncos' defense is going to be good regardless. I think it's going to score points. Yeah, it's going to depend on what happens with the quarterback position. If it's Bridgewater, I think it could go either way. If they're able to swing a trade, even if it's not for Rodgers, but if it's somebody that's legit, I could see it going fairly well for them in Denver. Anybody else got anything before we move on to the NFC?
No, I mean Chargers looks pretty good.
Yep.
But with any team, though, the coaching staff, you got to put in some work on these players. can't slack off. You gotta develop them the right way, or you're not gonna be worth a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. So that ends our coverage of the AFC Draft, and we will now move on to the NFC.